Okay, I think we have a few people joining us just now. So good afternoon, everybody. This is MediWales. I am Debbie Laubach, Operations Manager, and I'd like to introduce you to our next webinar, LifeStories Live, Innovation, Research and University Collaborations. So this is part of our LifeStories Live series. We had a very successful launch in July. And now we're running a series. We're focusing on specific areas, so university collaborations. We've got an event on Monday, which is looking more closely at industry stories. And then we have two more, NHS from the front line and digital transformation, which will be running in the coming weeks. Just a few minutes introductions while we're waiting for the rest of the delegates to join us. But in the meantime, I think it would be worth just catching up on a few things. So I hope everybody is sitting comfortably on this rather rainy Thursday afternoon. So we've all been busy over the summer. I'm sure everybody else has too. We've got, apart from our LifeStories Live program, we are planning a few more events to look at finance and funding, NHS access, and of course regulatory, which is a major issue, I know, for a lot of our companies. We've got, there's been a lot of activity over the last few months. We've all been very busy in one way or another. So it's good to catch up on some of these stories. I think we've all, I think Wales has got a really good story to tell on how we've collaborated in work together as companies, work together to support the NHS, work together as the universities, collaborating with all partners to try and deliver support for solutions for the pandemic. Just a little bit of parish notices, just to say, we've also opened our applications for the MediWales Innovation Awards. This will be our 15th Innovation Awards. So, it's scary how many the years go by, I guess, but this one's going to be very different this year. Of course, we're sort of not sure that we're going to be able to deliver a dinner the way that we would normally, and it's always really popular. So it's a real shame not to be doing it and having everybody come and join with us to celebrate the best of Welsh innovation. But this year, I think you'll all agree that it's got to go online. So we're working on various ways that we can deliver that with films and videos and audience participation and just lots of ways to try and make it interactive. And that'll be on the 2nd of December. So if you've got an application you'd like to make, Izzy is coordinating those at the moment. We have 5, as ever, we've got 5 industry categories, which are innovation, startup, collaboration with the NHS, outstanding achievement, and export. So those are our industry awards. Then we also have our 4 NHS categories, looking at NHS innovation, again, collaboration with industry. Also, we have a specific COVID related application this year as well. But anyway, full details are available from Izzy, and we can follow up with further information and papers. So good luck, everybody, with that one as well. Just a few more people joining us now, so hopefully we've got our speakers as well. So this afternoon we're looking at innovation, research and university collaborations. So that's our focus for this afternoon's webinars. We have a really good set lineup of fantastic speakers. I'm never going to get used to this, I guess. It's a real shame not to be in the room with everybody together, but this is how it's got to be for the time being. So our first speaker is University of South Wales, Jerome Newland and Emma Hayhurst, senior lecturers, and they will be talking about their rapid COVID-19 testing project. Jerome, are you with us? Would you like to turn on your speakers? Hello, Emma.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we're here.
Yeah, hopefully your own is here as well.
Thank you. Emma is here as well, but because it's only 5 minutes, I'm going to do the talking, I think. Oh, I should have a video as well.
There we go.
My face.
Good afternoon.
Okay. Shall I? Well, first of all, thank you for the invitation. It's very exciting to talk about our journey. And it's been such a I guess it's been a difficult time working on the COVID response, but also it's very very inspiring, and I think in that sense is a very positive story. So if I can share my slides, let's see if that works. Can you all see this? Yeah. Okay. So our journey together with Emma started. We were trying to develop an urinary tract infection test, and we started doing this 3 years ago, and that was in a response to the Longitude Prize, which is a prize that is basically looking for a fast and an affordable way of detecting an infection. And basically, we went from, as you can see in the picture, a box with wires and tubes 3 years ago to in like a proper prototype ready for manufacturing, which we got last week. And the COVID-19 really facilitated this innovation. So we went much faster than we could have gone otherwise. So we had this technology ready. We've been working on detecting E. coli and other pathogens in urine, but we knew that we could use the same technology to detect COVID-19. So when the pandemic hit, and well, actually a little bit earlier in January and February, Emma and I thought we could use this technology for this, and we started working on this. And but of course, we could never do this alone. It's been such a collaborative effort, and how we got there. I think we've been helped by so many people, and especially Phil Webb and Tom Powell from COMPATIBILITY Health Board. They've been absolutely instrumental to get us going very, very soon. I think people working in innovation, and it's been crucial that from the start we never started innovation by filling in forms, right? So we started talking to people, and what's been really important for us is to have people around us that actually believe in the innovation, believe in inventing something, and keep us going. And so Phil and Tom, but also the director of the health board, Kelechi Noam, they have been absolutely instrumental for us to get us going very, very quickly. But also within our university, very quickly people realized that we need to get going with this. So very soon we got the go ahead, we got funding available, and basically without applying for anything, we could actually start our work. So working together with the clinical staff in the Royal Glamorgan Hospital and the COMPATIBILITY Health Board, and Prince of Wales Hospital, who have been making probes for us, it went really, really fast, very quickly. So the connections, the collaborations, and basically talking to people, and everyone wants to make this happen, which has been very, very important to us. And basically everybody was lovely. It's been really hard working in a lab in innovation, but what kept us going is talking to people believing in us, and just seeing the importance of the work, especially in March and April when it went really, really badly. So now we are much further, and we are actually spinning out our own company called Lucerne Scientific, and we are partnering with the GX Group in USC, who designed the device that's going to be manufactured, and Biomont in Bridgend, who are going to provide the kit. And again, it's been a very fruitful and an active collaboration with all these people to make this happen. So we are, at the moment, we are in the phase of, we're going to, for validation, so CE marking, and hopefully we'll get a validated diagnostic test. And, the exciting thing is it's going to be a low cost, a very affordable device. So probably around, the price of a mobile phone. And the test is going to be suitable for care homes, schools, hospitals, places where there's no lab. So it's truly point of care, that you can go straight from a swab, a saliva, or a nasal swab into the tube, and the answer, the test result in 20 to 30 minutes. And this is something we always wanted to do. So we were not in it from, to make a large business. We wanted to help people. That was our starting point. And we our aim is always to build a ethical business, and basically to get the economy going again. So our work is not done. We still have a lot of work to do, and it's much more regulatory work. But with our partners and with all the help we're having within Wales and from the Welsh government has been funding us, I think we'll get very, very far, and hopefully in a couple of months we'll actually have the test that could go out into the community. So that's our story. I don't know, am I taking any questions, or is this for later?
Yeah, we're easily sending a message to the delegates at the moment to ask for questions. I must say it's a really good example. It's a great way to start the event, because you've got genuine collaboration with your colleagues from the health board. I know Tom and Phil obviously working really hard on this, and then also some great Welsh companies, GX Design and Biomond as well in Bridgend. So it does really sort of, I think it shows how everybody pulled together, but also how local networks and local collaborations were really important, because you needed to work with people that you already knew, because there wasn't time to find new people, and like you said, fill in forms, and so it was essential to get things off the ground quickly.
I think that's it, and it started from a random phone call, because I've been working with Phil for a couple of years, and he usually phones me up late on a Sunday evening about something completely random, and he did that, and then I happened to mention this test, and it kind of went off from there. And that wasn't a technical talk, but we didn't want it to be. We wanted to really showcase exactly what you said, the collaboration, all the way through to the picture at the end, who are the lovely nurses that were doing the testing at the test centre, who didn't have to do a second swab, but did it for us very happily. And it's been such a pleasure to work with like-minded people. Really, it's been fab.
We've got a question here from Andrew Davidson. Says, how do you guys regard the news from UK government on rapid testing today?
What's the latest from the government? I haven't had a chance to look at today. We tend to get our head down and ignore all the stuff that comes out from the government. There's been a lot in the news about testing over the months. And I think at first we kind of felt the pressure building over that, and now we just think, okay, get our head down. If you're doing a good thing, you'll eventually get noticed, and hopefully we'll get it. But yeah, Jeroen, I don't know if you've seen the specific story, have you?
I think he might be referring to the 90-minute test that they're going to roll out more. Again, I think it's important to see that there are many different solutions, and there's a lot of politics in all this is involved. I think what we have, though, is something truly point of care that we can. It's very cheap, compared to other solutions. There are a lot of other things that we've seen they call rapid testing, which could be a rapid, but it's much more for a much larger pool of samples. And this is what was in the news today. Without becoming technical. I know we have something that is unique and will fit in a niche for sure.
We're nowhere near at capacity on testing at the moment in terms of what's going to be needed in the coming months. And even when we have a vaccine, testing is still going to be needed in so many settings for us to get back to some kind of sort of normal life. So, and I think there's also a strong desire, locally to support local initiatives and local projects and local supply chains as well, because if you're relying on wider supply chains, then it's been shown that doesn't always prove to be as reliable as we need it to be in a crisis. So I think there's lots of reasons why there's still, genuine commercial value in new products coming to market at the moment.
Exactly, and of course our technology is a platform technology. So we started off as designing for urinary tract infection, and we will go back to that as well.
Yeah, and I think you even just the difference between 90 minutes and 30 minutes, and I think you saw at the start when there was the massive need for testing that the supply chain got bottlenecked massively. So I think you're right that we need lots of different solutions using lots of different supply chains so that there is enough to do testing on the scale it's needed. And I think our major aim is to get it out of the lab and decentralized, actually, so that when you're in rural Powys, you're not having to kind of wait for a sample to be sent to a lab, processed, sent back. You can get your answer then and there. That's where our little niche is, I think, is that kind of low resource almost community setting, although it would also be suitable for anywhere. So.
Yeah, point of care is definitely the next stage, no doubt about it. Okay, well, thank you very much.
One more question, sorry, Deb.
Great.
Any concerns with false positive?
Well, this is, of course, we going through validation. False positives is of course a concern. I mean, this is where we have to work on. I mean, the underlying molecular technology is robust and is proven. It's not to say that the clinical side of the testing is actually quite difficult. So where you do the swab, what the disease picture looks like is moving from the nasal cavity to further back through the throat and then more systemic, all depends on the swabbing and the detection technology. So it's quite complex. But of course, we know that the molecular technology itself is very specific. We'll just go through the normal validation procedures.
I think a big thing is to avoid contamination, the same as it is for any molecular assay. And we've definitely had our moments when we've struggled with that, but that's, we've got through that and kind of worked it out. But our eventual assay, that's why we're working with Biomon, because they can make it in sterile conditions, so we know that it's completely sterile when it comes. And I think we'll have to make sure that when we're training people to use it, that they know that environmental contamination is potentially an issue. But that's another reason why we've reduced sample processing. So you literally just stick the swab in and out again. So actually the chance for contamination is pretty low, as long as you do it, properly and in the right settings. So yeah, well, I mean, we haven't had huge issues with false positives. We did with our first set of our first molecular reactions, but then we optimized it, and now it's looking pretty good. And well, as far as we know, we've had no false positives. But
we've had a question about false negatives. Are they being more important?
Yeah, that's another interesting one. Sensitivity, of course, is really important. And there was a lot of talk about our underlying molecular technology, LAMP, being less sensitive than qPCR, which actually isn't true. It depends on the primers that you use. And we're quite lucky because we've been a bit slower than other groups. We've actually managed to optimize our primers, and the ones we've got at the moment show equivalent sensitivity to the ones that Public Health Wales are using. Again, I think we need to wait for validation to kind of show exactly our sensitivity, but we know that we're picking up at least 90%. And actually, because of what Jeroen said, and because we're using a saliva and a nasal swab, in some ways that might be better to pick up those asymptomatic individuals who tend to keep the virus. That's where they have it. It's quite far forward in their respiratory tract. So watch this space. We can't tell you for sure till we've done the validation, but it's looking good. I mean, and if we're using it as a screening tool, we're still going to reduce, even if we have 90% sensitivity, we're going to reduce asymptomatic cases by 90%, which would be a real big thing. And we're aiming higher than that. We hope we have 100% sensitivity, but we don't know till we've done the validation. So.
Well, fantastic. Oh, well done. When you've set up the company, do let us know, and you can then apply for one of the awards, perhaps innovation or startup, even if.
Yeah,
I think we did have some great applications this year, but
We will.
looking forward to that. Well, thank you very much. That was fantastic. Great way to start, and good to hear about the collaborations and the local connections. So well done, everybody, and come back to us if there's anything else we can do to help. So. Okay, thank you. So moving on now to Cardiff University, and the long established, I think we're going back many years now, CITER, which is the Cardiff Institute for Tissue Engineering and Repair. And they've been working on a rapid response to COVID-19 related PPE shortages, and so I'm welcoming Jean. Sorry, I'm not doing very well on names. I know I'm going to fall over today. So Jean Maillard, who is the director of CITER.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much, Debbie, for the introductions. Where I'm coming from is really different. So let me share my screen. Hopefully everybody see my screen now. Right, where we're coming from, it's very different from the excellent first talk. Where we're coming from is at the time in March, where it was very clear there was not enough PPE, especially in healthcare, to make workers safe. And we were approached by the Welsh government to see if we can look at a way we can reprocess safely a PPE on particularly face masks. So we put a team together very rapidly, and our objective were very simple. We wanted to develop a cost-effective, a very rapid method for the reprocessing of mainly two types of face masks, which are the N95 type respirators, but also the type 2 surgical face mask. We wanted to ensure that the method we choose and we recommend will be reproducible and provide reassurance for efficacy and compatibility with material. As you reprocess the material, we want to make sure that it's still working the way it should be. Now,
I don't think we've got your slides up. Sorry, shall I put them up, or would you like to share?
Oh, you can't see my slides.
No, not right now.
Things. Please do so then. In this case,
I'll pop them up now for you. Give me 2 seconds. Just direct me then when you'd like me to change a slide.
Yes. Okay. Right. So if you're moving to slide 2, then. Thank you. The next one, please. So I was saying, I mean, the difficulty with, again, trying to eliminate the virus is working with the virus. And because it is a biosafety level 3 virus, only very few labs can work with that. On most of the lab looking at more identification of the virus and so on. So we need to use biological indicators. Now, the good news is the SARS is not a very difficult virus to eliminate and to kill. So if you use an appropriate biological indicators that is more resistant than the virus, that it gives us confidence that the method would work. So in this test, we've used a bacterium that is recommended in some European norm tests for PPE, looking at the quality of the materials. Next slide, please. So on these biological indicators is great because it resists desiccations. On the other side, it is far more resilient than SARS. So we look at two systems that we know would work pretty well with eliminating the virus. We look at a microwave generated steam, so basically a microwave oven, and we look at also a dry heat oven as well. And we look at different, I guess, parameters, looking at the time, taking to assure that our biological indicators was really killed very quickly, but also the parameters inherent to the type of a device we used. Now, I've got to say it's not any particular microwave oven we used, but a industrial grade microwave oven. Next slide, please. So in terms of efficacy, it was very easy to set up a test where we drive the microorganisms on the mask surfaces, and then we test the efficacy of the oven. And we're looking at reductions in viability in this case, which we're looking at least 4 logs, so 99.99% reduction in viability. And you can see with that slide, that table with dry heat, 70 degrees, so it's not too high, but we really needed 90 minutes to reprocess the mask safely. And with microwave generated steam, then the way it works is you have a sterilizer inside, like a baby bottle you use for a type sterilizer, and you've got different volume of liquid you can have. And what we found is actually we can actually produce 99.9999% reduction in the biological indicator within 60 seconds in those conditions, which was absolutely fantastic for us. I mean, very, very rapid process. But next slide, please. The very important part is, do those processes damage the material? So for that, we've done 2 tests. Really, we put together 2 tests that based on the approach by a European norm test. So they give us confidence that the materials will be intact and will still be working as it's supposed to work when we reprocess them. The first one is called a bacterial filtration efficiency test, where you aerosolize the bacteria. That's a green arrow in the picture. It goes through your materials, and then you collect any bacteria. That's a blue arrow at the bottom. And if you collect loads of bacteria, that means your material is not working very well. The other test is looking at sodium chloride filtration efficiency. Again, that is a test used by manufacturers to ensure that the material they're using is appropriate for face masks or different type of face masks. Next slide, please. And again, what we actually saw is, depending on the type of mask, you've got different results. So, for example, on the upper table there, we're looking at type 2 surgical face mask. We can see that a microwave generated steam was not good at all, because although it killed loads of biological indicators, it damaged the mask. So that was not an option for those type of masks. Now, the number 1 on 3 is we also look at whether or not we can reprocess the mask once, twice, or 3 times. Now, if we're looking at the FFP2 respirator, then using either method that do not damage the materials, so give us confidence, then we can use those methods and the mask will still function pretty well. Next slide, please. In terms of sodium chloride filtration, which is another way to measure the mask efficiency after reprocessing, then we've got different histograms, but the bottom line is the processes we use, either dry heat or microwave generated steam, did not damage the function of the mask using that type of a indicator. Next slide, please. So at the end of the day, we came out with an organigram saying, what do we do if we want to reprocess masks? So we've got one for the type 2 surgical face masks, and we've got one for the N95 indicators. So our organigram said, when we receive the face mask, we need to check already if it's damaged or stained, and you can discard it. If it's not, then has it already been reprocessed more than 3 times, yes or no? And then if it's no, then we can reprocess it now using dry heat for at 70 degrees for 90 minutes. And after that, we check whether or not it's damaged, or if we've got any malodors as well, which is very important. And if the answer is no, then those masks can be recirculated, packed and recirculated safely. Next slide, please. With the FFP2, a respirator, it's a bit slightly more complex, but again, we check before at the start whether or not they're damaged or stained. And then we're looking if they've been reprocessed, yes or no. And then it depends on the type of respirator, because some of them came with a sort of a metallic wire that you put across the nose, some of them it's plastic. So if it's a metallic wire, it's incompatible with the microwave generated steam, and then they can need to be reprocessed through dry heat. But if it's a plastic wire that they can be generated reprocessed through the microwave generated steam. Now, the good news as well is we also tested lemon scented essential oil. So through the process, then you've got a mask that smells very nice after reprocessing. Because again, the idea is for you is if you're wearing a mask that's been worn by someone else, is it going to smell? What happened to it? So it might not be a very nice idea. So we came around that with lemon scented essential oil. Again, the process is the same. Then after processing, whether the mask is damaged or not, and if it's not, then it can be packaged and recirculated. Next slide, please. So within a few weeks, we managed to do all that work on provided the Welsh government with our results and recommendations. And of course, I mean, probably those type of reprocessing mechanisms are really destined for, I guess, small scale reprocessing because of the size of those those ovens. So maybe for surgery or dental practices on very small scales, we ensure that they were not expensive. So for example, that industrial scale, a microwave oven is £650. So very affordable. On the sterilizer that you put inside is about £15. So it's very easily manageable. But what we did not include in the study, although we're reflecting upon that, is the entire reprocessing schedule from who's going to collect the mask, who's in charge of reprocessing, and who's going to distribute those masks. Again, for a large scale, it might not work that well, but for a very small scale reprocessing, it might be much easily manageable. We've got also a question we didn't address of liability. We ensure that the system is safe, it kills all the microorganisms that are on those face masks. So that should be quite safe to be worn again by different people if they're being reprocessed. But of course now the question is, we put all those in place, we've done all that work and we published that work actually. But the question is, do we still have a shortage or do we need those devices in place to reprocess those masks? Next slide, please. So I've got to thank quite a number of people. I mean, within a very short period of time, we managed to put a fantastic group together from the School of Engineering in Cardiff on pharmacy, where I do work. And we managed to do all that work within a few weeks and provide a timely recommendation to the Welsh government. And now it's really up to them to see how and if they want to use what we've developed here in Cardiff. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. That was an excellent presentation. Actually, I think as much those slides were very informative, but I really enjoyed the sea.
Yeah, it was distracting. I forgot to remove the background. So I was a teleconference early on. I forgot to remove the background.
We're loving this. Okay.
Maybe distractive, but I am in Cardiff.
Oh yeah, don't doubt it. So I think in answer to your question, I mean, in terms of the reuse of and whether there's a shortage, I think there's also a major issue in relation to recycling and waste. You know, when you think about all of these masks, you know, what is happening to these, you know, and how have they been disposed of, and if any way we can reprocess and recycle in a safe and infection controlled way, it's got to be a good way forward.
I agree with you, absolutely, yes.
Have we got any questions, Izzy?
We do. We have a question from Andy Davidson. Very interesting work and could have a future role. Has it been tried in practice, and what discard rates have you observed? If not, what is the next stage of implementation?
Well, the next stage is to try it in practice on to see that and how it works. But again, we're waiting really for the Welsh government to for the next step, because we're ready to go and advise how to use that reprocessing cycle. And that's why I mentioned in the slide that that might be those type of reprocessing suitable for very small scale reprocessing, like dentists, for example, and so on. But we're really waiting for that, and we're ready to go if they want us to do. And it's hard to know what will be, how many masks will be discarded in the first place. I mean, when we tried in the lab, At the time, we didn't want to use too many masks because they were needed in front line. So we didn't really do a large scale study to look at that.
Okay. Are we ready to move on, Izzy?
Yeah, those are all the questions.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you very much. That was really interesting. And again, I think it's sort of another example of a group of people who already knew each other pulling together and, you know, throwing all their weight and energy and time into an essential project to support the pandemic. I think there's a lot of, even though things now are calmer and we're kind of being a little bit more reflective on what has happened in the last 6 months, I think there's still, we're still living with this in a big way. So the PPE and diagnostics for the time being are going to be our only way through this. Okay, thank you. So we have another presentation from our colleagues from University of South Wales. I'd like to welcome Nigel Copner, who is Chair of Optoelectronics, who will be talking to us about their work on a pulse oximeter blood oxygen monitor. Hi, Nigel. Hi there.
Thank you for the opportunity. I've been struggling, just to let you know, I've been struggling to get any Wi-Fi this morning, and only within the last hour has actually started working, so I apologise if it cuts out. Clearly, we are personally proud of what Emma and Drone have done on the virus tester. So far, within the presentations, we've had obviously a way of detecting the virus. We've had a way of stopping you get the virus. Our work is largely dealing with what you do if you've got the disease. And it's born out of really under panic conditions that were around towards the end of March. And Rhys Thomas within Alvar looked at concepts to avoid people going on to ventilator machines and to provide intervention at an earlier stage of the development of the COVID infection in the lungs. And we all know historically and from most life science applications that the earlier you actually start the intervention, the better the survivability from the disease. And I think that's largely borne out with some of the results coming through from various hospitals. But the key to all this is actually to determine at what stage a clinician needs to intervene. And early on, it was recognised that the pulse oximeter is a way of doing that. And we were contacted by the Welsh Government back in late March because the oximeter supplies worldwide were completely swamped, and supply was a real issue for the hospitals. Even the components that make up an oximeter, because they tend to be common between the various suppliers, even those components, which predominantly are sourced from China, there were serious issues of getting those components into to build up within South Wales. So we were tasked to look at, initially, to look at developing a new oximeter based on risk-free supply chains. So every component would be different, essentially, from the standard oximeter build, and therefore we'd have to build up from scratch. So we quickly pulled a team together internally. We have Alex Olion, Sivi Gunnalan, and Jason as well. And essentially, we pulled the team together very quickly, and within a fortnight, we delivered the first demonstrator, funded by the Welsh Government, which we're very appreciative of. But on the testing, we clearly observed that when you go to lower O2 levels, you can actually go on to slide 3 at the moment if you want, Isabel. We quickly observed on most applications where you're trying to go to lower oxygen levels within the blood, because that's what you're monitoring with an oximeter. It's a non-invasive technique. We're looking at the amount of oxygen the body is actually carrying around in its blood as a percentage of the total hemoglobin. And it's a standard technique which has probably been around for about 50 years. Ironically, the original inventor of the oximeter, I think, died in around about June this year in Japan, not because of COVID, because of old age. But so you can see how old the technology is. And within this field, there's about 16,000 patents. So, you know, trying to achieve any innovation in this field is extremely difficult. But nevertheless, what we found was, in general, as you go towards lower O2 levels, there was inaccuracies being introduced from the standard techniques. And so where you want to get to accurate levels of measurement down to say 60% O2 in the blood, just to give you some background on that, there are people walking into, at the time, to New York hospitals with only 65% oxygen levels, which was unheard of prior to that. But the main reason for that, in the understanding, was that people could expel carbon dioxide, which is stopping the poison building up in the body so efficiently, but they couldn't get the oxygen into their system. So the oxygen levels were depleting, but the carbon dioxide levels were actually getting out of the system. So they were walking in with very, very low levels of O2, which actually meant that they would immediately be put onto a ventilator. And obviously the chances of survival are far less than if they were, in for instance, put on a CPAP machine, which is a pre-ventilator support for the lung. So if we go on to page 4, the next page, you can see in general, as the pandemic took off, there was a mad panic for oximeters, but basically there was very little information most of the time in terms of where people's oxygen levels were within the community. And so there had to be some access to oximeters at a low cost with sufficient accuracy that a clinician can actually make a judgment on whether there's early intervention is required or not. And the trigger point for the early intervention is around 90%. So as soon as your oxygen levels go below 98%, you become concerned. As they creep below 90%, you need to then see a clinician to see if they need to start a CPAP machine to stop you going further into lower oxygen levels. So the project started off as a supplier issue, but quickly evolved to one which is, how do we achieve high accuracies? So if you go on to the next slide, I've essentially summarized some of the interventions there for the pandemic, where if you got a mild drop in O2 levels to moderate and to severe, and then obviously the course of action would depend on what stage you are on that. Most people might end up on a mild, and therefore no intervention is required. Below 90%, you start to require intervention, and then obviously severe is where people are walking in 65%, which would go straight on to a ventilator. We believe that Boris, for instance, Johnson, when he went to hospital, his information was based on the oximeter, and he was moved into the hospital, and he was put on CPAP, and then he avoided going onto the ventilator, which is key. If you can avoid going on the ventilator, your survivability increases enormously. So you can see within this chain, the oximeter is extremely important. Now, if you go to the next slide, we were funded by the Welsh Government, and weekly and almost daily in some cases, we had conference calls with Industry Wales. There was absolutely phenomenal support from the Welsh Government in terms of linking us up into various industries within Wales and further afield. There would be injection molding companies. We would have Panasonic, who actually did a lot of the CE testing down in Cardiff. We had companies down Sony in Bridgend, who were all linked in to feed off to manufacturers in the event that this required within the pandemic. You know, Aldar was there to actually guide the specification, to tell us this is what we need in order to provide this early intervention. So there's a fantastic cooperation within Wales, and to be honest with you, it all happened very quickly. But as we developed this technology, we actually passed the EMC with Panasonic, who provided that service for free. We actually passed the full EMC, which is difficult, and we were in the process of getting MHRA exemption, which allowed us to supply into the NHS under the current non-qualified position, because obviously we haven't got MHR formal approval. We didn't have a CE mark in medical, but we just missed out on that exemption because the pandemic was coming down. But within that, we looked at the way that the oximeter was working, and we discovered, wait a minute, there's a way here to actually improve the accuracy of the oximeter. You can go on to the next page now, the next couple of pages, Isabella. So that shows you the device, and the next page again shows you the basic architecture for the electronics, which is pretty straightforward. And then you can go on to the next page, which is just showing you the real requirement here is to actually, at the end of the day, is to achieve the high accuracy oxygen level measurements, but within the community, for instance, in the care home or within a ward of the hospital. But with it, ideally, and this is now becoming more of a policy, is that if people have COVID or are suspected of having COVID, then if you provide them with a low-cost oximeter with the right accuracy, then essentially you can monitor their progress at home, so they don't get exposed, further exposure within the hospital wards. they can actually stay at home, monitor the oxygen levels, and only when they go below 90% does it trigger an hospital visit and obviously further intervention to stop them going onto the ventilator. So this is critical for the survivability once you've got the disease. But in order for this to happen, in order for this to actually take effect, you've got to, and it's absolutely essential, to have an oximeter which is of low cost with the right accuracy. Now, most of the devices which provide the ultimate accuracies are, we're talking £2,000, £10,000. They actually are very complex devices using more than 2 wavelengths of light, probably 7 or 8 wavelengths in order to achieve the accuracies. But what we've discovered locally, there's a trick we can use, which we've actually put in, which allows you to get the accuracies at the low cost on the standard configuration. And we've done a patent search on that. And even though there's 16,000 patents, that isn't captured. So we have a very strong case for a patent. And we've implemented that technology. And one of our internal profs, Professor Damien Bailey, has validated this test in trials internally to show that the accuracy is better and is consistent. And therefore, we're on the path now to providing, when required, a low-cost oximeter with essentially Rolls-Royce specifications. And so we're very proud of that moment. So we're trying to move on to the next stages to try and spin the company up. If you go to the next page, you can see what we need then in order to enable sensible measurements to be taken in the community. It has to meet the low-cost criteria and it has to meet the accuracy and reliability, robust, be able to take a measurement all the time. So we've achieved that with our device through the design of the clamp bed, the electronics, and the new innovation. And obviously, we've shown that it actually works really well. If you go to the last page, so just to summarize, we've got the precision, we've got the low cost. Not only have we got the low cost now, we've actually got a risk-free supply chain. So all the components which go in the device, and we worked closely with RS on this throughout the development. So every component, we had to establish at a supply in stock of over 10,000 components. So we could draw down within a matter of days all the components we needed to build the units. The unit's extremely easy to build once you've got the injection molded parts, and just clip them together and it goes through a final test and out the door. So the low cost aspect has been addressed, the accuracy has been addressed, there's innovation in there, and at the moment we're at the stage where we probably need about £350,000 in one form or another to actually take it through the formal CE medical approval, which is required to sell into the market. And we don't want this to happen, there's potentially another panic where an MHRA exemption is issued, which we were close to getting, and then obviously we can supply to the market and to de-risk the whole COVID impact. I think that captures what we've done. I'd like to thank everybody in the team. Welsh Government have been absolutely fantastic. The team locally here have worked long hours throughout the night. We've worked at 4 o'clock in the morning sometimes trying to pull off the design to get it working. We've had fantastic support from Aldar, David Bailey, and internally from the PVC for research, Martin Stegel. He's been absolutely fantastic linking up his people. So there's been a good team working together to deliver it on time and to the level as well. Thank you very much for your time.
Oh, thank you, Nigel. That was really, really interesting. Yeah, and another really good example of local collaboration, local partners. Very interested to hear about your plans for a spin-out company, which I think is also the plan for your partners in the University of South Wales on their diagnostic. Can I ask some questions to your plans for that? I just wondered, because we've got a company who works in this area already in Wales. Are you in any conversations?
If it's, I've been in discussions with Magstim. I've been in discussions with Huntley.
Okay.
Not sure what you're talking about. Huntley are definitely interested as a customer, but they obviously feed in the eye end. So they want obviously another source, local source for them, with de-risk their supply chain, and they are keen to engage with us as a customer.
Okay.
We speak to Magstim, and they are obviously interested, and they're trying to orchestrate things internally themselves at the moment as well.
Okay, yeah, we know Magstim and Huntley well. I guess I suppose they were sort of Huntley in particular was in mind.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So, and you mentioned regulatory. That's going to come up again and again because it is a significant hurdle to get, especially now with the new medical device directives.
Yes, that's right.
And how are we doing for questions? Izzy, are we?
No
Any
questions.
questions there? Okay.
Okay. And Nigel, it might be helpful because we can help a little bit maybe with some other support in relation to that sort of process, regulatory and business support and collaboration. So maybe we can pick that up going forward. So we sort of can give you a little bit of help in that area too.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you.
Right. Fantastic. Thank you, Nigel. Okay, so now we are, I think, moving on to our next presentations and sharing the love. It's Cardiff University again. Hi, Kate.
Hello.
Kate Brain is Professor of Health Psychology, and Yvonne Moriarty, Research Associate. A little bit of an aside, of course all our presentations have been directly COVID related to date, but obviously there are a lot of other conditions which also need to be attended to at the moment, because their study has been optimizing public awareness of cancer in the COVID era, which I'm pretty sure is a subject quite close to a lot of people's heart, given everything that's been going on. So delighted to welcome you to our presentations this afternoon, and thank you very much.
Thank you. I will just have a go at sharing my screen. Just bear with me. Can you see that?
We're good, yeah.
Hang on, I just need to maximize it as well. Sorry, just give me a second, a bit slow today. That should be, yeah, great. Okay, well, thank you so much for inviting me today. It's actually the first time that I've had the opportunity to talk about this study, so I'm really excited. And my colleague, Yvonne Moriarty, I'm going to present, but Yvonne's going to be available to answer, hopefully, the difficult questions that I can't answer. So thanks, Yvonne. So yeah, so it was really fascinating to hear all of the other talks, because you know, there's a real theme of team science here, I think, isn't there, where we've been able to work really quickly with colleagues, you know, in a very flexible and adaptive way. And I think it's just really, really fantastic to hear about other people's experiences that certainly have been mirrored in my own experiences over the past few months. So hopefully this will, hang on, sorry, I'm not doing very well today on my, there you go. Okay, so COVID-19 has really presented really quite serious challenges for cancer services, all the way from screening and symptomatic referral through to diagnosis and treatment. And the two main routes to early diagnosis, so presenting to the GP with suspected symptoms or taking part in the national screening programs, have really been disrupted. And so we raised the alarm amongst the cancer early diagnosis community back in April, when we prepared a commentary paper for Lancet Oncology, where we were raising concerns really about the effects of what we thought might be the effects of the UK lockdown and the social distancing measures on people's awareness of cancer and their help-seeking behaviour, and the impact on the timeliness of diagnosis. And I have to say that that paper, which I'll talk about shortly, was probably the quickest I've ever written any paper in my entire career. Basically, with a team of us involved, it took about a week. So that was just incredible. And then we saw, towards the end of April, we saw that, unfortunately, as we had expected, there was a considerable reduction in cancer referrals in England and Northern Ireland. And so we thought at that time that the decision to suspend the cancer screening programmes, and also the initial government messaging to stay home, protect the NHS, save lives, sent a very strong signal to the public that cancer can wait. And so I just wanted to briefly talk about some of the research that we've been doing on the international stage over the last 10 years that bears relevance to what I want to talk about today, looking at the sort of increasing understanding of the barriers to cancer awareness and help-seeking behaviour. And we know from our previous research that people in the UK are much more likely than people in other high-income countries to say that things like worrying about wasting the doctor's time and being too embarrassed are things that would potentially put them off seeking help for a symptom that was causing them concern. We talked about the time as this sort of was known at the time as the British stiff upper lip. And we also know that people are good at recognising sort of classic alarm symptoms, so things like an unusual lump or unexplained bleeding. Now, these are the sorts of things that ring people's alarm bells, but we're not so good at recognising and acting on the more vague potential symptoms, so things like a cough that won't go away, you know, which clearly overlaps with COVID, and also things like persistent tiredness. We also observed quite clear socio-demographic differences in people's beliefs about cancer. And we know that sort of fearful and fatalistic beliefs, so this feeling of, well, if you're going to get cancer, you're going to get it, there's nothing you can do about it. And those sorts of beliefs tend to be more predominant in people from lower socioeconomic groups who are also likely to be disproportionately affected by cancer. So there is a real potential for the pandemic to widen these sort of existing inequalities in cancer outcomes. And we have been using those findings to develop interventions, whether they're public awareness campaigns, so the Be Clear on Cancer campaigns in England and Wales, and other types of interventions to really support earlier diagnosis. So, as I mentioned, we submitted had a paper published in Lancet Oncology back in April, where we were setting out what we thought might be the barriers, might be the sort of barriers to people's awareness and help seeking around cancer that would need to be mitigated as we emerge from the pandemic. And so we think that the known barriers, so things like dismissing symptoms or misattributing them, or this concern about not wanting to bother the doctor, are probably barriers that are likely to be amplified during the pandemic. And there are also likely to be new barriers emerging, so things like obviously fear of infection in healthcare settings that might stop people from going to primary care with symptoms or taking up cancer screening when that resumes. People might also perceive there to be a burden on the NHS. They don't want to overstretch services that are already stretched, and this perception really that it's okay to wait. And we also think that the changes to service delivery, particularly in primary care, are likely to possibly affect people's help-seeking behaviour. So the rapid change to remote GP consultations might inadvertently disadvantage certain population groups. So, for example, people who are less tech-savvy or non-English-speaking groups. And that may inadvertently result in missed referrals, particularly for vague symptoms that can be harder to spot. And so we're really going to have to prepare for what we think will be a considerable backlog of people with symptoms during this period. So we had that paper published, and then I kind of thought, okay, what's next? Shall we apply for some funding? And I was slightly hesitant at first because I thought, gosh, that's an awful lot of work to do very quickly, and it may not be successful. So what I did was I went to have a chat with my colleague, Professor Mike Robling, who's one of the directors of the Centre for Trials Research, just an informal conversation over Zoom, obviously. And he was incredibly supportive and really, helped me to think, actually, okay, this is a really important question that we need to address. So we very quickly got a team of excellent people together. So researchers based in the Centre for Trials Research Unit, one being Yvonne, who's on this call, people in Cancer Research UK, Public Health Wales, and other academic organisations to quickly put together a grant application. And it was successful. So we were very fortunate to get a substantial grant from UK Research and Innovation to do a population study of cancer attitudes and behaviours. And the aim really is so that we can generate rapid evidence that we can use to develop new and relevant public health interventions, or to adapt existing interventions, so that we can encourage people to present to their GP with concerning symptoms, to consider taking part in screening when that resumes and to take up healthy behaviours. So I'm obviously not going to go into details of methods, but very briefly, we're carrying out 2 population surveys of adults across the UK with qualitative interviews and also linkage with SAIL data for the Welsh cohort so that we can assess clinical outcomes, so things like primary care referrals and investigations, the number and stage of new cancers diagnosed in the period, that sort of thing. And so we launched the survey on the 6th of August. It all happened incredibly quickly. And over the past, not even a month, we've recruited almost 7,000 people, which is absolutely brilliant. We're absolutely blown away with that. And we're recruiting people using established online cohorts through Cancer Research UK's panel and also HealthWise Wales and social media recruitment. So as part of that, we're also specifically targeting groups who we know are disproportionately affected by both cancer and coronavirus, so smokers, people from deprived communities and BAME populations. And we've got 18 months really to do the study and to hopefully get a really good handle on what the barriers have been to cancer help seeking during this period, and then use that information to put rapid interventions in place so that we can hopefully go some way towards mitigating the burden of cancer over the coming months and years, really. So I just want to end by thanking, really just acknowledging all this fantastic team that I now have the absolute pleasure to work with, particularly Yvonne Moriarty, who is just absolutely brilliant in terms of getting things off the ground very, very quickly, putting up with lots of emails and all that sort of thing. And really just to highlight the benefits of working with a trials unit like CTR, because they really enable you to work in a very agile and flexible way. So, you know, if anybody has got an idea that they think they want to, you know, work with a trials unit, it doesn't have to be a trial, it could be early phase work, then I would absolutely recommend doing that. And I think that's pretty much it from me. So yeah, over to everyone for questions.
Well, thank you very much, Kate. So yes, Izzy, do we have?
Yeah, we've got a question on our Q&A. Do you think the fear of getting nosocomial, sorry, I'm not technical, nosocomial infection is worse than it was at the height of the C, diff and MRSA outbreaks? The difference today seems to the increase in compliance in hygiene and environmental disinfection.
Can you repeat the question? So it's quite long.
Yes, sorry. Do you think the fear of getting a nosocomial infection is worse now than it was at the height of the C, diff and MRSA outbreaks?
I mean, it's not really my area of expertise, because my area is sort of cancer awareness and behaviour, but I don't have any evidence, but I would imagine it would be pretty high. And I think, you know, certainly anecdotally, we're hearing reports that people are, and I'm sure aware that are reluctant to visit their GP because they're concerned about, you know, catching coronavirus in different healthcare settings. They don't want to put themselves at risk. They don't want to put family members at risk who might be shielding. And I think that, you know, obviously this particular virus is absolutely at the forefront of everyone's awareness. Cancer certainly isn't. Other forms of infection are probably not. So yeah, I mean, if I had to make a prediction, a hypothesis, I would say probably yes.
Great, that's all the questions we've got in our Q&A.
Okay, thank you very much, Kate and Yvonne. A very informative presentation, and I think with all the emphasis on COVID, which is rightly so, given it's a pandemic, but at the same time, when they talk about excess deaths are related not just to COVID, but to other conditions that are not being treated at the same time. And like you said, I think, you know, cancer, the sort of impression that cancer can wait, which of course it cannot, and any delay is going to have an impact on the treatment and ultimately the outcome. So a really important piece of work, and we look forward to seeing how that progresses in the coming months. Thank you very much for the presentation. Thank you.
I've just had an email from David Ford, who we're going to try and slot in next, if that's okay.
Absolutely, David, that's good to hear from you.
Hopefully the others are all right with that. Let me know if there's any problems though, and I'll just I'll get David on now.
Okay, Matt, sorry for just slightly rearranging the program, but hopefully that's going to be okay for everybody. Everybody's doing really well for time, so David, great to hear from you, and and really interested to hear from you. I know you and the data bank team have been exceptionally busy, as like many other of the teams during this time. So it's really good to hear what you guys have been working on.
Well, okay, and I'll attempt to share my screen now if I can get away. Yeah, you're going to have to look at me so much. So yes, thank you very much for other panelists for allowing me to go next. As you pointed out, Debbie, it's been a very busy time for us, and unfortunately it has not yet ceased. So I need to get away to another one of these hideous Zoom experiences with a lot people that are a lot less pleasant to be with, I have to say. So what I'm going to attempt to do over the next couple of minutes, and I shall do my best to keep it brief, is to give you a sense of what we in the Sale Data Bank team, and in fact a large number of other teams within my institution and across Wales, have been doing to support the COVID pandemic. And as you probably will have guessed, all of you, or surmised, that actually there's been a huge attention on data and its role in understanding how the pandemic has progressed, how it's been spread through the population, how the various interventions that have been put in place at a policy level may or may not have made any difference. And the debate goes on with the current one is schools, isn't it, about what their role is in this stuff. And actually, the answer to those questions is in data. And that's where we've been trying to do our bit. So I'm quickly going to give you an overview of the Sale Data Bank in case you don't know what it is, but you may not understand it, and that'd be perfectly reasonable if you didn't. So a quick overview of that, and then really just a little bit about where data linkage and COVID has been playing, and really the groups of people who have been coming together as a One Wales response to try and do something about it, in a data sense at least. And then a brief nod to the fact that we've actually been playing the same game in a UK context as well as in a Welsh context as well. And if there's time for questions. Okay, so very quickly. Sale Data Bank's been around for about 12 years or so now, and our job is to repurpose administrative and clinical data for research. And this is data about people as collected by health systems and services across Wales and the UK, and other governmental bodies that collect data about us in the context of them doing their normal thing. And what we do is link it together into longitudinal records for everybody in a population, often going back 25 or 30 years, and then very carefully protect the privacy of those individuals, but still allow it to be used by researchers from across the world to answer important health-related questions. And of course, we've been doing this for a while in Wales, which has given us a head start. And before we started, we had 40 data sets which were core or core restricted data sets. In other words, anybody in the world could apply to access them in various combinations. That for Wales, that amounted to 50 billion records of people like you and I. And at any point in time, we'd had a couple of hundred projects we were supporting across a range of different research areas with a few hundred users accessing our machinery every day. Yeah, busy. But of course, that all changed when COVID came about, because suddenly the answer to every question was, where's the data? So, and I'm going to tell you a little bit of one slice of the story from my perspective. But if you want to know more, our population data science web pages, which are the kind of grouping of big, fairly substantial research investments into my space, it contains more information. You can go and find something which makes a lot more sense, I suspect, there. So the One Wales approach really was a coming coming together of the various agencies you see down on the right hand side whose logos are there, and a few others which I haven't squeezed the logos in, really to try and use data to the best possible effect to steer Wales through what it was clearly a really difficult time, and continues to be so. That was a formally constructed initiative in the sense that the Sale Data Bank was formally requested to be the pivot point for data linkage activities across Wales, and that was to support a whole range of analyses which would feed directly up into Welsh Government's technical advisory group, which is chaired by the CMO, which in turn feeds to SAGE, the bods that you might hear referenced regularly in the news. And so we pulled together, along with lots of others, all of the people that have an important role in this, and we've been working collectively ever since. And of course, one of the things that changed was that we needed more data, and we needed it faster. So the cadence, which means the frequency of data has been upgraded massively. Data we're already receiving, we've received a lot more data as it's necessary to understand COVID, and there's a lot more in the pipeline. So 18 new data sources have been deposited in the Sale Data Bank, and these are all kind of frequent incoming data sets. We've upgraded the incoming data from 15 more, and we've had 157 new inquiries to work on COVID research, of which 65 have been approved, are being worked on right now, from a range of organisations. But you'll see not just universities, which are typical kind of customer, as it were, in the past, quite a percentage from government and from the NHS as well. And this kind of information about data and what we have and what we got has been flowing up in a UK sense, beyond Wales, into through an organisation called Health Data Research UK, which is a kind of UK-scaled enterprise to try and improve the way data is used for health-related research and for health outcomes. And they, as part of their work, they have been regularly producing a report to SAGE directly every week about progress across the UK in making data available. There's been some controversy about this in the past, but you will note from this slide, for example, which is a regular slide each week, Wales has been, well, this is a little bit of patriotic opportunity for you here. If you want to wave your dragon flag, now's the time to do it. Wales has outperformed every other part of the UK, whether that's NHS Digital, Scottish or the Northern Ireland equivalent to us, by some measure. And there was a point in time, I think this was in June, where over 2/3 of the active projects using data in the UK were being facilitated by the Sale Data Bank. And we're still leading the pack, as you'll see. So I think it's some credit to the work, not just of my team, but all of the organisations that have data and contribute data to this enterprise and or use it to good effect, to say that, to show that we're still outperforming other parts of the UK in terms of that story. That's just an example of where we're surfacing the data that we do have to international audiences, such that they can see what data is available and what they might be able to do with it. So the way we've been organising things inside the Sale Data Bank to support a really wide range of projects, some of them looking at the way that the disease is spreading through the population, some of them evaluating the different policy decisions in terms of curtailing that spread, some of it measuring the impact on health services, and of course, all of those things modelling the future, trying to understand the various scenarios that might come to pass were things to change. So a wide variety, and to do that, we've built up this kind of cohort of participants built on an existing model of a multi-morbidity cohort. So people that are already quite ill, but we've put a lot of other criteria in there, as well as ethnicity and lots of other determinants of bad outcomes, and of course children as well, contemporarily. Now, I'm not going to go into these slides, I simply don't have time, but just to give you the impression of the sort of outputs that we've been producing over time. These are rare for us, because these don't end up as published reports going in the Lancet or in journals. These go straight to government. They end up in front of Patrick Vallance and Chris Whitty in SAGE via our colleagues in Welsh Government. But they are kind of indicative reports that allow governmental organisations to make decisions, good or bad, about what it is that policy should be doing in these very volatile and difficult to understand times. And as you can see, we've done our best to make the product of our analyses consumable by people that don't necessarily understand what a box plot or a funnel plot looks like. So kind of much more kind of easy to understand before shielding, after shielding. I'm not using the word dumbing down on purpose. Part of this, just a little kind of a segue to this kind of some of the work that we're doing in a UK context, because everything I've said to date is really fundamentally about Wales as part of the UK. One of the roles that we've taken on, of many during this COVID time, is to guardian the data that's been produced by the Zoe Symptom Tracker app. This is an app that many people have downloaded and used to report their symptoms. There's about 4 million people using this app across the UK, and have been from really quite close to the beginning of the COVID outbreak. And it's proved to be very valuable data. And they approached us early on and said, would we take that data? So we've, for the last 4 months or whatever it is, that we've been getting a daily upload of all of the data that's entered into that app. And we've been sharing it widely with Wales, obviously, but actually we've been using it to share with a great many other researchers across the UK. I use this as one example. So we are in Sale, as it were, the data partner to another organisation called Breathe, which is a health data research hub funded by HDI UK and the MRC, who are very focused on supporting respiratory research, actually, and was conceived well before COVID. But as COVID is fundamentally a respiratory disease, a lot of kind of COVID-related research is kind of focused in on Breathe, and as a consequence on us. And so not only have we been supplying that Zoe data, for example, to the Welsh Government and the programme I've just mentioned, but we've supported 39 other projects from researchers, governments, local governments, NHS organisations around the UK to use that very same data to understand what's going on in Scotland, Northern Ireland and England, which is great. And I had the great privilege of reviewing Chris Whitty's application to become a Sale user the other day. And you should be pleased to know that I approved his application. And as a consequence of being involved in Breathe and a lot of these other national stuff, we're also very significantly involved in a lot of the large studies you may hear mentioned from time to time in the news and elsewhere. Again, doing this kind of data stuff in the background, it's not very sexy work, but it's pretty important. And our job is to make sure that we get as many high quality researchers using data as possible to give us as much insight into the world as possible. And just to end to say that actually what everybody really likes is a good map, and so the Zoe data in particular, but not exclusively so, has been used as part of a UK-wide programme of doing maps, showing disease spread and symptomatology across the UK changing over time. And this has been on the desks of every government in the UK, and they use it daily or weekly probably to help them inform their strategies in Scotland, Northern Ireland and Wales. So there we go, that's me done. Hope that wasn't too garbled, Debbie.
Oh, well, that was very impressive. You definitely covered a lot of ground there. Really interesting to hear how the Welsh Centre is feeding into the UK and particularly the UK government decision making. Well, at least the decision advice, at least, if not the decision making itself. I think, I mean, I suppose one of the things that we've been working on from the MediWales point of view is that we've picked up on so many of these stories, and I sort of mentioning dispatches for Welsh Government and the Welsh Government teams, and I know how hard they worked, you know, put in the hours, and obviously the NHS goes without saying, but the way that the universities and research groups and the companies, so many of them just transformed what they were doing because they were in a position to help. And I'm wondering, so I suppose my question is, again, flying the flag or the dragon flag a little bit, is that Wales has had these structures or had these groups already, and they were in a unique position, I think, to sort of then to transform themselves into the COVID-related response in a way that maybe some other regions or areas weren't quite as able to do?
Yeah, well, I mean, I can't speak for for everything, but I know from the little bit of the world that I occupy, I think was our success, our continuing success in relative to other parts of the UK, was partly due to the fact that we were kind of on the road already. We already had done quite a lot of stuff. We were already working together, but also there was a coming together of everybody in a very rapid sense. We've heard that in every presentation, actually. Things happened really fast, people came together really quickly, and they got on with it, which I think is probably harder to do in large countries and places that are less well connected. So I completely agree with you. And I have, and just to say the point out loud, because I hadn't mentioned it, that all of the guys that are in the teams in Swansea that are on the right, represented by the right hand, probably about 70 people stopped what they were doing and turned towards COVID and acted as one team, either bringing data in, curating it, analysing it, whatever it was. And they worked day and night, ceaselessly, tirelessly to do that. And so did their counterparts in Public Health Wales and in NWIS and in Welsh Government and so forth. So it has been not only a great collegiate effort, but it has been a great effort as well. It's been really exciting.
Oh yeah, and absolutely, and at least, not least to the I know the long hours. A lot of people put in a huge amount of hours, and so we're just trying to catching up now. 6 months down the line, I guess. But the huge effort, but the fact that those local networks were already there, people knew each other, and they were able to collaborate so quickly. I think one of the good news stories that we can tell from the Welsh effort. I think overall Wales has come out well in a lot of the indicators, but also well from the point of view of its university collaborations, the university research, the NHS and the companies as well have done extremely well. I suppose it's our job to try and get a bit of that message across.
Absolutely. Well, you do a fantastic job. Continue.
Well, thank you, David. Well, that was brilliant. And does anybody have any questions for David now before he has to go?
I haven't got any questions here, so I think we'll let you go to your call, David. Thanks very much.
Lovely to not see any of you again.
Again soon, hopefully.
Okay, that's it. Bye.
Bye now. Okay. That was a lot of ground covered, but very interesting and great to see how the work here is being fed into the local but also the UK response. Very sorry for our speakers who were bumped there, sorry about that, but welcome now. Matt Wordley is the CEO of Rescape. So Rescape is SME, a small company based in Wales. So we're talking from the company point of view about how collaborating with a university has progressed a significant COVID project. So welcome, Matthew. Great to hear from you.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Debbie and the team, for inviting us to come and talk today at this event. So I'm sort of aware time is of the essence, so I'm going to give you a super whistle-stop tour of what we've done, who we are, and also about obviously the recent COVID project that we've undertaken with the Centre for Trials Research at Cardiff University and COMPATIBILITY Morgana University Health Board. So let me just share the screen. There we go. Great. Okay. So my name's Matt Wordley. I'm the Chief Exec of Rescape Innovation. For those of you who don't know us, I'll give you a very quick little bit of history so you know what we do and where we come from. So about 2.5 years ago, I was working at the time actually for a company called the Oximeter Events Group. We were heavily into virtual reality at the time, using it for all sorts of different clients, for all different sorts of things. We did some pro bono work for Velindre Cancer Hospital, where we used VR to help get patients through MRI scans. Off the back of that study, we came across a scenario that you can actually use VR to not only reduce anxiety, but also reduce pain. We thought that was fascinating. We realized there was an opportunity there to use it. And, you know, it was obviously a really interesting alternative to other pain reduction methods within the NHS and within the care system. So we created a new company called Rescape. and we raised some investment to launch it properly back in February 2019 last year. So what are we doing at Rescape today? Well, I think in effect, sort of this quote says it all. We're pioneering the use of immersive technologies to solve challenges in healthcare and life sciences, such as reducing anxiety, pain, and improving the patient experience. We've done that by developing the Dr. VR platform, which is a bespoke design platform for deploying VR within healthcare. It's expandable, it's customizable, and it's great for delivering virtual therapies, information, but also training as well. And we have successfully sold this already in our first year into the NHS, care homes, hospices, and also actually into blue light services, where it's being used in empathy training currently to help train prison custodial officers in empathy with injustice immigration. So we obviously pretty quickly realized that anything in healthcare has to be evidence-based and has to be done with rigor. So as part of, as well as going out there and selling our product, we started on a number of clinical trials and feasibility studies and worked with some great partners. In one particular, there was a fantastic study that was done by Dr. Kerry Lynch, an intensivist in ICU at COMPATIBILITY Morgana University Health Board, and Gemma Jones, where they used our platform within the ICU department to help reduce anxiety and pain within patients and also their relatives. And they also used the system during the study on staff as well. I don't know whether many of you know, but actually ICU is one of the areas that has the highest burnout of staff within healthcare, and yeah, it is quite a serious problem with anxiety and also depression, etc., within staff. So this study had some amazing, excellent results, and has recently been published in ICU Management Journal. We know that, and this will make sense in a moment when I talk about how we deployed this into a COVID solution. We know that anxiety and stress within and depression within healthcare staff is a massive problem. Just to give you a figure, and this is pre-COVID, in January this year, there were over 430,000 full-time days lost across the NHS just for anxiety, depression, and stress. Which is obviously an enormous number and a massive impact into the healthcare system and obviously the patients that it looks after. So when the COVID situation came along, as always, we're a great believer in a tech for good company and what we do. It was our initial thought was, well, what can we do to help, and where is some, some things that our product and our solution can help within the effort in dealing with COVID. And we knew off the back of this study that had been undertaken that our product had been shown to reduce anxiety within staff. And we wanted to basically investigate whether that could be directly deployed into frontline staff to help reduce their anxiety. So very quickly, working with the psychology team at COMPATIBILITY Morgana University Health Board, in particular Dr. Michelle Smalley, who was responsible, who got drafted in from dealing with patients to oversee the well-being of staff, dealing obviously with a very high level of stress, and also obviously working with Dr. Kim Smallman, again from the Centre for Trials Research. We created something probably in 10 weeks that would normally have taken 10 months to do, a deployment of 20 headsets directly into staff to see whether it was a useful aid to support the mental health and well-being of the frontline NHS staff. That went extremely well. I'm just going to run actually a very quick video, and hopefully it'll run shortly. But the overall conclusion, obviously, of this study that we did was that a virtual reality intervention aimed at limiting burnout and supporting mental health and well-being of frontline staff is well justified going on into the future. So I'm just going to quickly run the next one, which hopefully will run.
And even if it's for 10 minutes, they're away from that stress. That would be many of the distractions, the
Can you turn it up a bit, please, Matt?
Oops, typical. Sorry. Let me just go through. Can I?
A bit more volume would be great.
Yeah, I'll do that now. Bear with me.
Thank you.
Do you want to run it from the start? We got time.
I'll run it from the start.
Yeah, run it again.
To be able to give someone, no different to picking up a magazine or a book. Can you just have a break from everything that's going on outside the break room, you know, or at work when you get home? Can you give someone a break from that? Can you give them something they can get themselves into? And even if it's for 10 minutes, they're away from that stress. That was the aim of many of the kind of the distractions, the scenes that you could go through. The other side was, for me, I was hoping would be more of a therapeutic benefit. Certainly maps onto cognitive behavioural therapy, models of anxiety, stress management, guided deep diaphragmatic breathing. We know that that kind of practice, especially if you're doing it regularly, helps to really bring someone's level down. Like you say, you can see people's shoulders come down, you see their breathing regulate, the same as I see in hypnosis. The way, I think between 88 and 94% of the staff who used it were reporting it had positive benefits on relaxation. It gave them a distraction from work. They would recommend it for other colleagues. And a bit of an anecdotal on the free text questions, people were saying it helped them get off to sleep. And that for us wasn't something we were actually expecting. In some respects, we should have done, because if you're anxious, sleep gets impacted upon. We know people get insomnia, either they can't get off to sleep or they're waking early in the morning. So the fact that people were actually, without us prompting them, they were saying this is helping with sleep, for me, that is somewhere I'd like to focus kind of, you know, our next step. Where does this go? What are we looking at?
Great. Was that okay? Could you hear that?
To be able to give someone no different.
Oops. There we go. Right. Could you hear that, Debbie? Was that okay? Good. Okay, great. So where has that piece of work led to, and what are the next steps? So we formed a website called futurevision.health, and we now have 10 NHS trusts from across the UK, from northwest London to Coventry to Salisbury, signed up to be part of a gold standard clinical trial looking at whether VR can be used, one, to reduce anxiety in people who are presenting with anxiety, but then also as a preventative measure to help people not end up presenting with anxiety. We've set up this website also as a collaborative space to allow us to explore all different opportunities for VR within healthcare. And we've actually already got a number of other projects in the pipeline, both in primary and secondary care, where we believe VR can make a significant impact. We're obviously very excited by how this project is progressing and how quickly it was able to progress. I'm not from a medical background, and obviously I've come out of a commercial environment that ran very, very quickly in what it did and needed to make quick progression. Kind of having transferred over to the healthcare sector in the last 24 months, it has at times felt like stepping into another world. But having seen the ability now that how the healthcare system and the partners and the collaborators in the universities can work really quickly and fast together is super, super exciting, particularly at Wales. I think that, you know, we've got a great opportunity in Wales with the Welsh NHS and those universities to, especially with our sort of our homegrown health innovators, to create some really brilliant symbiotic relationships and create some real value in businesses going forward, and obviously ultimately into patient well-being and health, which is absolutely brilliant. So I hope that the learnings of how to move these projects forwards at speed will be progressed as much more into the future as well. So that's futurevision.health and what we were up to. You can go and have a look at our websites. There's lots and lots of other things that we're up to as well at the moment. One very final last plug, actually. We're actually, as a business, in the middle of an equity raise at the moment. As of yesterday, we've raised over 350,000. We're currently on Crowdcube, raising equity investment. We intend to build a world-leading business based in Wales, leveraging the therapeutic and training potential of VR in healthcare and blue light services. If you're interested in becoming a shareholder in Rescape, please do go and visit the website, and you can become one of the, the group of over 400 investors that we've now had to come on board as part of this round. So thank you. Hopefully that's given you an overview.
Oh, well, thank you very much, Matt, and a really, really interesting presentation, and all the best of luck with the crowdfunding. We can do what we can to help with that if you'd like us to.
Brilliant. Any promotion is all
yeah.
good.
Give it
It's all about the momentum and the marketing.
Absolutely. Well, always, and also I mean, really important, valuable work for supporting the frontline staff who are very, very much on the front line as well. So, all credit to you guys. But also, I know, because we're a company who normally runs events and conferences, that if you've been a company that runs events, your world has been turned upside down, and you, like many others, have had to completely change what you've been doing to develop a new business in a new world. So I guess that's been quite the journey as well in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's obviously kind of, so although I've still got an interest in what Orchard has been doing, it's obviously been an interesting and challenging time for them in the events and exhibitions and AV worlds they operate in. Obviously from my perspective, it's been having something positive to run at over this period, over the last few months, where we felt we genuinely could help and help, staff and anxiety, and help the COVID thing, from my perspective, has obviously been in some ways a bit of an honour. So yeah. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, that's you kind of, if you're in the healthcare sector, or even any way that you can sort of be somehow help, that did feel good, because you just wanted to do something, I guess. We've all felt that, at least we've been in the right sector from that point of view. I think we have some questions.
We've got a question here. How is COVID affecting the protocol for using VR headsets between multiple users?
Okay, so yeah, so obviously one of the challenges that came up when COVID kicked in was our normal system that we use, the Dr. VR platform. It's a shared headset. And obviously there are the unknown challenges about, well, what does it mean to be sharing a headset in a COVID world? I think, I'm not sure that I'm officially allowed to announce it yet, but we've got some very exciting partners and collaborative project working with 2 Welsh universities looking at improved infection protocols, etc., that we're moving forward on, that fingers crossed is imminently starting. So hopefully there'll be some press that will be coming out about that shortly, which is great, looking at that. And also actually the very interesting journey of medical devices for VR, which in effect we're part of writing the rule book at the moment, and how VR and when it doesn't become a medical device. So that's again very interesting.
Yeah, regulatory comes up again. There's the development, there's the project, there's the clinical trials, and then there's regulatory, which was always a major barrier. But once you've got your regulatory, then that product is yours, and and then you could take it forward. So that's really interesting. I just wondered, would it be lemon scented? Just an idea.
I heard that earlier. I thought, I like that. A fresh new shared headset. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Matt. Actually, everybody's been brilliant today. We've had our first event. We've had terrible problems with time, but everybody's been really good with their presentations today. So thank you very much for everybody keeping to time. So and for the last minute sort of changes in the order. But any other questions just before we move on from Matt?
No other questions. Thanks very much, Matt.
Thank you.
Okay, fantastic. So last but by no means least, Swansea University Medical School, Dr. Arif Reza Anweri and the innovation technologist, and Wyn Griffiths on mask comms. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, can you see my screen?
We're good to go.
Yeah.
Right. So thanks for giving me the opportunity to present MaskComm project. My name is Arif Reza Anwari. I'm an innovation technologist working in Healthcare Technology Center at Swansea University Medical School. So today I'm going to present MASCOM device. The story behind this MASCOM device is government has set out guidance that says that all staff in NHS hospitals need to wear face mask. So there are different professionals who work in the hospital, for example, nurses, doctors, management team, administrative staff, ambulance service team, and others. I have found from internet that there are more than 50 different professional groups work in a hospital. So due to their work nature, they need to communicate with patients, staffs, and other colleagues. So in COVID wards, different professionals need to take care of patients and provide timely interventions and ensure their own safety. So during the surgery, communication is very essential where anesthetic and surgical teams work closely. So their FFP3 masks cannot be removed while talking to each other. Ensuring their health and safety is very important. The downside of wearing face masks is that their voices become muffled and indistinct. They're unable to read facial cues, which results poor communication, miscommunication, and sometimes it prevents from communicating each other. So therefore, this issue around face masks preventing communication is a big concern in hospitals. Dr. Simon works as a consultant anesthetist at BCU Health Board. He proposed a solution which allows a device to be placed in any mask that can transmit to every colleague or to a communal speaker without compromising the PPE. The device will have two parts, a microphone unit and a speaker unit. Both units should be connected automatically through wireless communication protocol. Both units should be portable and small, as the microphone unit will be placed inside a mask and the speaker unit will be placed inside a pocket or on chest. So both devices should operate at least 12 hours in one charge. Such microphone and speaker system are not commercially available and require research and development tasks. The traditional Bluetooth wireless communication system has a significant level of latency, which will delay the voice to play onto the speaker. The size of microphone unit should be very small with low power consumption. There are many challenges for designing and developing such system. It requires experts in different area, for example, hardware design, software and data analysis. So HTC has experts in different areas, including electronic circuit design, wireless communication, data streaming, machine learning, data analysis, and other areas. So HTC experts are helping to address those challenges for the MASCOM project. The idea was presented the UK first online Pan Wales Health Hack event arranged by Menai Science Park and the Bevan Commission, MediWales, the Life Science Hub, and Besti Cawardal Health Board. So Mascoms owned the first place and achieved 5,000 from North Wales NHS charity and 3,000 from Santander. So Win Griffin, design engineer and a team member of this project, will share his experience and describe details on Mascom project. Now, I'm going to describe the Accelerate program. Accelerate program helps innovators in Wales to translate their ideas into solutions that can be adopted in health and care. If a company has an idea or healthcare technology but are not sure what the next steps are, if someone has a business and wants to expand their business, services, or if someone is an allied health professional who has found a clever way of improving a process, then Accelerate would like to work with you. Accelerate is led by Life Sciences Hub Wales in collaboration with Swansea University, Cardiff University, and the University of Wales Trinity St. David. This program is sponsored jointly by the Welsh government and European Regional Development Fund. So Accelerate's ultimate aim is to help companies to expand their business, product range, develop new healthcare technology, improve their services, and boost the Welsh economy. So now I would like to invite Win Griffith to describe MASCOM project, please. Win.
Thanks, Arif. Yeah, so as Arif I think explained, I'm a freelance product designer with about 20 years of experience working with Bangor University in innovation product design. But just so having gone freelance last year, having COVID strike wasn't in my sort of business plan. So yeah, quickly sort of turned to making visors and things, and subsequently got involved in the health hack. So somebody mentioned earlier on, that innovation doesn't start by filling out forms, and it's certainly true of the MASCOM's project. So basically what we have is a sort of ad hoc, self-assembled team of 4 people to address this problem. So Simon is a healthcare professional, a consultant at Ysbyty Gwynedd. So he recognised the need for this, as Arif was explaining. But myself, and as a product designer, not much experience in sort of medical industries, no experience or little expertise, I should say, in electronics. But then Arif from Accelerate, has really helped us along with this project with expertise in sort of Bluetooth and the electronics and what it's actually going to take to make it work. We have Tom as well, who is another product designer. So a self-assembled ad hoc team, really, but given a pile of cash, and now we have to actually deliver this imagined solution, I suppose. So in the process of doing that, hopefully by sort of the end of the month, we'll have a prototype, which is a working prototype of a sufficiently advanced stage that we can actually give to people and get some feedback of them. So it'll be actually the 3rd prototype. The first ones were fairly rudimentary, with plenty of problems that we could actually see ourselves. But we've decided to do it, in this iterative way where we're learning something about the problem, not just the prototypes as we're going along, and we're co-evolving a specification for the product. So the idea is that it's actually going to fit inside the mask, and it can actually be used with various kinds of masks, disposable, reusable masks, etc. So completely independent of the mask itself, and without compromising the seal of the mask and the usability, functionality, and certification of the masks as well. So that's our, it's quite a significant challenge, as Arif was explaining, in terms of the technology and the communication between the microphone and the speaker unit as well. So once we've got this this prototype developed, the next stage then will be hopefully to establish a company and to see what needs to be done to develop the device further. It will also enable us to show it to funding sources, potential funding sources. And there are other potential uses for this device as well. We're talking potentially in sort of construction and industrial sectors as well, where there are dust issues and communication issues exactly the same. Yeah, so I think that's about it as far as I'm concerned. So I don't know if there's anybody got any questions. Be happy to answer them.
Yeah, we've got a question here. Would the MASCOM's product be available to patient groups that vocal communication would be considerably hindered by wearing a mask?
Well, yes, I suppose so. Can you elaborate on that, on the question? Sorry.
Yeah, so it's from one of our colleagues, Alan, who's always actively involved in our webinars, which is great. I suppose he's just asking when it would be available, or would it be available, or I guess how would patient groups, for example, get access to it?
Yeah, well, so I suppose it's early stages in terms of the technical development of the product. You know? And what we're hoping to achieve is to get it to a stage where, you know, we have a proof of concept, where we're confident that there is a product there, and it's a technically solvable solution. And from there, really, we can go on, you know, establish a company. And there's no doubt there'll be, you know, certifications then that we'll have to take it through. So that roadmap is something that we're working on now. Is where do we go once we've got this proof of concept prototype in place? You know, so in terms of getting it to market, we're a good few months away from that. I anticipate.
Great. Well, keep us updated with all of your progress.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, right, Arif, Wynne, thank you very much. And I have to say, Arif, and your excellent mention in dispatches for all organisations involved in the projects. There's a lot of I mean, and with all of the projects, obviously, it does take a lot of partners to pull things together. So it's really good to hear how everybody is working together and the programs are delivering, and we've had at least, I say, three projects that are looking towards spin out and company setup and product development. I think traditionally Medi Wales has worked on supporting companies in this area over the years. I think in our up and coming events, we'll be looking at regulatory approvals and how to go through that process, NHS access and route to market, and also, as ever, funding and finance, how to raise money, access the funds. You know, a lot has changed in the last 6 months. The world is a very different place, but I think in terms of products that have a clear route to market in a COVID situation, which is, let's face it, a global market, and so we're not talking just about Wales. Obviously, we're talking internationally, and also I think perhaps we've got some really good expertise, because we've got such a strong med tech sector and manufacturing sector in Wales as well that can partner and support. So I think, I guess this was our first event to look at the sort of early stage innovation and collaboration. We were talking about industry projects next Monday, and then we were going on to NHS projects the following week from the front line, and then looking at digital transformation in the coming weeks. Just mention in dispatches as well, we've got tomorrow, we're collaborating with our partners in UK Life Science Industry News, where James Hindley, one of our other members, has been working at Indoor Biotech on an antigen test. Will be presenting alongside other companies across the UK on their industry developments to help support the COVID response. In relation to the Welsh programme, we've got industry rises to the challenge on the 7th of September, which is Monday. 10th of September, NHS from the front line, and then the 22nd of September, the digital health transformation. So if you'd like to talk to us further, those programs are still being confirmed at the moment. So if we could possibly squeeze some more speakers in, we're obviously interested to talk to partners and potential sponsors for those as well. And also don't forget the Innovation Awards is also live. So I think we are early. So has anybody got any comments or questions or suggestions, especially with our event series? We'll be continuing our webinars into October and November and December for the time being. It would be great to be planning some more events that would be helpful to the sector. So let us know what you think. All feedback is welcome. Thank you very much, Izzy, for supporting the events and doing all the background tech for me.
All right, it will be recording will be sent out to everyone who's registered. If you want to watch it again or catch up with anything, and if you've got any questions, want to register for the other webinars, just drop me an email.
Also, yeah, of course, if you'd like to get in touch with us, the speakers or some of the potential partners, obviously there's further collaborations and working together to be done to deliver these projects to market. So please get in touch. Well, thank you very much, everybody. Hope you have a nice afternoon. Take care now.
Bye.